Thank you. I think it's a great pleasure for me to be here this afternoon to talk a little bit more about what materials engineering has to offer to mankind. And I've given it a title. Actually, the title of my talk this afternoon is, sorry, I need some. The Frontiers of Materials. Probably I stand aside if you don't mind. The Frontiers of Materials and the Future of Mankind. And I'd like to start off with a short story. You know, one day there was actually two astronauts who met up with each other. And one of them said, you know, we have been rather successful in space travel. You know, we have already landed on the moon. And what have you guys been doing, you know, you astronauts from the other planet? And the other astronaut, of course, wasn't very happy. So he said, hey, don't be so stand-up comedy, yeah? Yeah, you know. We astronauts are also as capable as you guys. One day, listen up, one day, we are going to fly to the sun. So of course the astronaut from the first planet was laughing all the way and said, how can you ever fly to the sun, right? Before you can even fly to the sun, your spaceship would already have melted. So don't be ridiculous. Oh, this time, the astronaut from that planet was really angry. He said, of course we know that. We have already devised a plan. You know, we are smarter than what you think we are. Well, of course, we fly to the sun. We will fly at night. You know, some of you will probably only laugh tomorrow morning when you wake up from bed, but that's fine. But the whole idea behind this is that you start to realize that in engineering is where we start to dream. Okay? Will we ever fly to the sun? Well, the first question is that is there really a benefit for us to fly to the sun? But will we ever fly to the sun one day really depends on the kind of technology and materials and innovation that goes into engineering in a very, very decades to come as well. And I'd like to start off by bringing this story to the word chrysalis itself. Because chrysalis really talks about how an idea really changes from one that is very raw to one that is actually can be applied in real life itself. So do you have a laser pointer or something? No? Okay. So I'd like to start off with the next slide. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, great, thank you so much. I'd like to start off with the next slide, which is basically about human civilization. I think the gentleman before me spoke a little bit about human civilization and end civilization. But as we all know very well, the human civilization started with the Stone Age. Of course, in the use of Stone Age, man actually created weapons. And with the use of weapons, man was actually able to hunt for animals besides just growing vegetables and agriculture. And of course, after the Stone Age is done, the Bronze Age, right? And with the use of the Bronze Age, they came more sophisticated weapons. Man also created statues, for example. And later on, one of the key findings that actually separated the Bronze Age from the Iron Age, which is basically the most advanced age, is that with the use of Iron Age, there was great revolutionary discovery. Let me just give you a few examples. The building that we're in here, okay, besides being concrete, of course we know very well that it also has metal rebars in there, iron rebars in there. And that makes a huge difference because with the discovery of iron, man is therefore now able to change transportation, for example, buildings, for example, and a lot of things actually started. The Industrial Revolution started with the use of metals or with the use of iron itself. And if you ask me what age are we in today, well, there's huge debate over here. Some people say that we are in the polymer age. Well, we're not wrong because the clothes that you're wearing, the shoes that you are standing on, the chairs that you're sitting on is all made from polymers, right? Some people say that we're in the silicon age because with the use of silicon, we're able to make supercomputers, just like what Steve Jobs did in his own backyard and founded Apple in a sense. Well, we are also in what we call the nano age. So if you take a look at this picture over here, you can find nano in almost everything. For example, in the paint, the anti-corrosive paint that's used on the Eiffel Tower, for example, it is made from, the coating itself is actually a nanomaterial that prevents Eiffel Tower from corroding. You have super light bicycles that are made from graphene, for example, buckyballs made from carbon nanotubes, for example. You can have even window pins like this. They are made from thermochromic materials, thermochromic materials that will actually change color in the influence of an electricity or even in the influence of heat, for example. And there are a lot of applications that we can think of. For example, we are even talking about clothes that can heal on its own. Can clothes heal on its own right now? Probably you need to send it to a tailor, for example, to get it mended. But in the future, the use of nanomaterials, this is something that's going to be possible. And these are just some examples of how nanomaterials look like under the, what we call the scanning electron microscopes, having different kinds of structures, having different kinds of shapes. So where are we right now? I've given here just 3 examples over here. One on the extreme right, you see the airplane. And why is the airplane able to fly faster, further, and using less fuel today? It's all because of nanocomposites. One of the biggest things that materials engineers are trying to do today is actually to change the heaviest part of the airplane, which is actually the turbine engine, made from metal, to be one that's made from plastic. Okay? If I'm able to change the turbine engine to be one that's made of plastic, that will actually revolutionize how people will actually fly from one city to another city. The handphone as well. Well, one of the most powerful tools that has evolved in the recent decades is the handphone. What used to be a supercomputer, the size of a HDB flat room, is now shrunk down to the size that is small enough to fit into your pocket, right? And you use it for all sorts of activities, whether it's playing games or doing your calculation. How is this possible? It's because of nanoelectronics, for example. How can we actually squeeze everything down to the size of a chip that can make your phone so powerful? And it's not just in terms of air travel or in terms of just electronics. We're also looking at the use of nanomaterials in cancer therapy, for example. So materials are also used in biomedical applications. Let me just give you one example. When a patient has got cancer, the patient actually goes for chemotherapy, and we all know very well that chemotherapeutic drugs kills off every single cell that is in our body, besides just the cancer cells. And what we are developing is actually nanoparticles that contains the chemotherapeutic drugs that are functionalized, specially modified on the surface, such that when you inject them into the human body, they can travel and find out exactly where the cancer is and home in and release the drugs only at the cancer site. Okay, that will actually relieve and alleviate a lot of side effects that the cancer patients are experiencing in terms of hair loss, nausea, vomiting, and so on and so forth. So this is how materials is going to change the world. So some of the things that we work on in the school itself ranges from defense materials all the way down to metal materials. For example, sports materials, nanomaterials, biomaterials, biomedical materials, materials for sustainability. How can we actually avoid this problem of food security? And the other reason is also because worldwide there's food poverty as well. So I recently wrote a grant to Bill Gates Foundation to actually to bring fortified food to the African countries, for example, to deliver iron, vitamin A, because these are the 2 nutrients that is most lacking in these countries. So what we did essentially was to use food waste. One of the food waste that we use is actually what we call okara. So okara is actually something that is produced in the production of tofu. So tofu is eaten across Asia, including Singapore, and tons of it is actually being discarded every day. And what you can do is that you can actually try to convert okara into a delivery system, into an encapsulation material that becomes very cheap. And you can put in your iron in there, you can fortify food using this. And essentially, you can put it into food. And so in the future, the concept or the idea is that we want to be able to fortify food using very cheap materials that people are throwing away. And one other thing that we are also developing is, can we actually target the release of these nutrients in specific parts of the GI tract? So for example, we know that nutrients are being absorbed in the small intestine. So we develop particles that contains these nutrients. They are coated with special enteric coatings, such that if we want them to be released in the stomach, if we want them to be released in the small intestine, if we want them to be released in the large intestine, it can be done so, just by changing the material of the coating of the particle itself. Okay, and one last thing is that we are also developing nanocellulose that can absorb fats. So I think being Asian, we are all very concerned that we love our McDonald's, but we are concerned that by having our McDonald's, we tend to grow fat in a sense. So together with our colleagues in Harvard, we have developed nanocellulose made from natural sources, and we tested them in mice. So we did both studies. We did studies in vitro, in the presence of cells, and in mice. And when we fed this nanocellulose to the rats, that has been fed with heavy cream or mayonnaise that you can find from the supermarket. Those rats that has been fed with heavy cream together with the nanocellulose, they actually experience less absorption of the fat, because what we've observed under the scanning electron microscope is that the fats are being absorbed by the nanocellulose and it's being passed out from the human body itself. Okay? And I'd like to conclude with this slide over here. I'm just giving you a glimpse of how materials is going to shape the world, just as how the pupa is going to emerge from the chrysalis to form a butterfly. And we get to see how materials, in this very, very simple way, can be elegantly made into new innovations that will influence our lives and the lives of our children and our grandchildren as well. Thank you very much.